In tonight's Your Voice, Your Vote, more than 28% of registered voters have now turned in their ballots in Oregon, and tomorrow is the last day to mail them if you want them to arrive in time for Election Day.
Now, one of the most talked about issues, Measure 91, and the vote to legalize recreational marijuana. It's already legal in the states of Colorado and Washington. KEZI 9 News anchor Jennifer Richardson traveled to Washington to show us some of the pros and cons of being able to purchase and puff away on the plant without fear of prosecution.
If approved, Measure 91 would legalize recreational marijuana for people ages 21 and over. Washington voters decriminalized marijuana in 2012, but it wasn't until July that 2 pot shops opened in Vancouver, paving the way for people to buy their pot legally. We visited Vancouver to hear how this decriminalization is going, to help you make the best choice as you cast your ballot.
If you're heading up I-5, you cross the Columbia River and can easily make your way into Washington. But right now, there's a lot more separating these 2 states than just the river. One of the biggest differences, weed is legal in Washington.
I think everybody has been pretty mellow.
People are pretty accepting towards it.
A state known for its evergreens is in the spotlight for another green resource. Some are calling it the green rush.
You can smell through here. This is actually a magnifying glass.
Brian Buds owns one of the 2 legal pot shops in Vancouver called New Amsterdam, and it looks a lot more high-tech than one would imagine. Specialty wood, professional staff, and lots of iPads to educate you on the product.
Because you can't have anything that's open, available to the public at all. It is very locked down.
The shop opened in July because while voters decriminalized marijuana in 2012, it was only just recently that the Liquor Control Commission figured out the licensing process. Bud says if Oregonians choose to vote yes, the same would go for Oregon. The OLCC would have until January 1st, 2016 to set up the system and rules and could start issuing licenses days later.
The obstacles have been a lot of the computer system, the tracking system, making sure that everything that we get from the grower and we check in here is accurate.
And even on a weekday morning, as soon as the doors open, the crowds make their way to the marijuana.
I think that our biggest customer base is baby boomers.
I don't ordinarily smoke it. Usually I prefer to eat it.
I think it's a positive thing, except for the ridiculous tax.
He's talking about the Washington state taxing system. There's a 25% tax at each level from production to distribution. In Oregon, Measure 91, however, calls for fewer taxes. Growers would be taxed $35 per ounce. 40% of the money would go to schools, 20% to mental health and drug services, 15% to state police, 20% to local law enforcement, and 5% to the Oregon Health Authority. And you may recall the city of Eugene opted out of grandfathering in its own tax, while Lane County and Springfield plan to tax it.
It's been in a constant flux because this is such a new industry.
Sales here at New Amsterdam are booming. Since opening in July, it's grossed $1.7 million before taxes. But how is the community handling this? And has crime gone up? We went to the chief of police to find out.
Nothing has dramatically increased or changed.
Vancouver Police Chief James McIlvaine says officers were prepared for the openings, and there's only been a handful of minor calls.
No mass hysteria occurred with the changing of the law and the introduction of the stores in the city of Vancouver. Pretty much has continued seamlessly and operating as another business would.
And the negative?
Would be that, you know, we're allowing the morals of society to continue to slip.
Driving under the influence of marijuana remains illegal, and the same goes for Oregon. And city officials have one recommendation for Oregon voters.
In terms of local governments, I would encourage them to think about where these businesses could be located, where they could not, and what overall position as a local government they want to take.
There are large groups in both states, though, very worried about Measure 91. At the end of the day, some say it's a mood-altering drug capable of producing dependency.
It isn't lethal. You don't die, but that doesn't mean it doesn't cause broken homes, dysfunction in the family,
Dr. Ronald Swerzler is the medical director at Serenity Lanes in Eugene. He says of his patients, 1 out of every 5 are primary marijuana users.
It is an addicting drug.
And he says he's more worried about the edibles that could become legal if Measure 91 passes.
You want an infant and child to accidentally discover one of these thinking it's candy, eat it, and have an overdose. Who knows what that's going to do to the growing brain.
But volunteers for the Yes campaign standing by legalization.
It's really time to stop this war on marijuana. Quit wasting our resources. Get police doing something useful.
A big debate and a big vote, but it's up to you. Hoping these examples and opinions make a tough decision a little easier. And until we know how Oregon votes, those like buds.
Yeah, these are all different strains.
Will continue navigating down the pot path.
Another gray area involves workplaces. If approved, employers will have to decide what rules they want regarding drug tests and marijuana. If the measure passes, Oregonians can start smoking pot 30 days after that. Count on us to cover both sides on this issue on Election Day. In the studio, Jennifer Richardson, KEZI 9 News.